Ow! Welcome to the Nuclear Snail channel and Ave Caesar, because this time I have once again a post-apocalyptic dystopian Roman build for you. So this is a successor build to the Roman helmet which I made a while ago. There was also a video about the Roman helmet, including the steps how I made it, so if you didn't see that one, you can go and watch it now or after this video, whenever you like. So in this video I'll show you the armor and its features. I will use its features as examples for some things that can apply not only to this type of build, but also to something entirely different. There is no step-by-step making of this time. For all my Patreon supporters who have received the message that I'm working on the distressing videos and wondering where those are coming. Meanwhile, just enjoy this. Now I'm just gonna freestyle about everything that I can think of. So since the spear is hitting on my leg right now, or hitting my leg, not hitting on my leg, I will talk about the spear. So the spear is not a part of the build. This armor is actually a client order for the same person who ordered the Roman helm. And I was just working on some back detail, right? So I found this tool clamp, it's called, I believe. It's used to hold tools on your wall. Like you just clamp tools into it, much like I've clamped the spear into this clamp. And I just found it in one of my crates and was like, yeah, this looks cool, this looks like it could go in the back, looks utilitarian. I didn't actually count with having something to put into it, but then I was like, hey, I do have this also Roman looking spear that I made a while ago, so let's clip that in. And it works pretty good, up to a certain degree. Now, keep in mind I never designed this clamp to hold this spear really sturdily, so it doesn't. It holds it well enough for a march, which is something the Romans would do a lot actually, and it holds it well enough for just moving around without too much sway. However, it did disengage me a couple of times from hitting my leg, so it's not something with which you could carry into battle like this. It's for more relaxed situations. Again, marching is the one thing that comes in mind. Now, my friend Julian, upon seeing the pictures, asked, how do you deploy the spear? And to this, I only have this answer. Like this. Quick and easy. And I also can clip this back in without looking. It's a lot easier than I thought it would be. Because, you know, locating that point on my back and all that, but no, I just use my hands as leverage. I kind of feel out where it is by its springiness, it's like a spring, and then I just clip it in. And it works great. So yeah, deploying it is also fast and easy. It's actually surprisingly fast and easy. I just reach back for it, and there we go. So this works a lot better than I thought it would. And there we go, back in again. There we go. It's so fun to pull this in and out. Yes, 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 I know. In before all the weird jokes in the comments. And those of you who didn't see this yet, this is obviously a safety tip here. This thing is actually sharp. It's a 9-inch nail in the front. It's my tactical spear with the light, which is a lot less stupid than it sounds at first, because a spear you handle like this, So I'm actually blinding the barbarian opponent of the Roman Empire when I fight him at night. Let's get in a bit closer and look on some other details. For example, on this chest, you will see this top plate. How I made it is I've engraved it with my CNC and then also had the CNC cut it out. Now you can do stuff like this without a CNC, with electrical etching, and also using a scroll saw or some other manual kind of a saw, or like a disc cut-off wheel. It will just take you a lot more time and effort, but this is something that you can also do without a CNC machine. And yeah, and then I just sprayed it with red paint and also had some bronze powder. And I put that bronze powder inside of these engravings in there and oversprayed it with clear spray paint, achieving this result of kind of a faded gold effect in there. Hope you can see it well on the camera here. Yeah, staying at the chest, we have this asymmetric kind of metal looking thing. Now this symbol reappears on the helmet as well. It's one of those, like these two, it's all Russian army or Soviet army or both mixed. Basically stuff from Russia. Not a lot of people know it, and it looks pretty generic, so I use it a lot. And also I got a lot of it from Russia as I was there. Here we have asymmetric chains. Also, so you can see that we have symmetric shoulders, asymmetric chest piece, but we have some asymmetric details on the smaller scale, right? So we have this asymmetric chains, we have this on one side and not the other, and then we have again some details that even everything out by being perfectly central, okay? This is an important kind of balance to strike if you're going for something like this. Making things a bit more asymmetric makes it look more alive. At the same time, if you go too asymmetric, it just goes into too much chaos, which happens a lot of times actually. And then it all just starts looking too chaotic, like it's falling apart. Staying up here, one of my best hooks, got this from Mike Tango and from Renee, as well as this. So it's just some mandatory nuclear snail chest hook kind of thing. I don't know which you can clip into this. I don't imagine those new Roman Empire, whatever dudes having like actual rifles or something, although they could. So, you know, whatever. Something that tells a story, but it is not necessarily a full story that is told to the like complete 100% completion. Like, what is this hook exactly for? I don't know, but you could clip in something and it's massive and it looks cool. What else do you want? Same here, but this one being a bit lower. Let me adjust the camera here. This one being a bit lower and also going below the armor. It goes from underneath the armor, it goes up. And I think it's from industrial climbers equipment, like a security hook or something. Something that you clip in to secure yourself against falling. I'm not sure. So this can also be unclipped. You press a button here and you push or pull like that. There we go. Opens up here. So this looks like kind of something that he could use, for example, for in the Roman context, let's say, if he's riding a chariot, he could unclip it from here, from this elastic loop that is here, which is, by the way, fun to play with. So he could unclip it and clip it to the chariot's security harness kind of thing. Something like this. Again, doesn't tell a full story, but does tell a story of a kind of a securing carabiner clip hook. And again, it's massive and made out of metal, so this is cool. Let me go to the belly here, where some of the coolest detail resides. So you'll notice here there is again this red highlight with Tiberius Aurelius and Legion 4. So those are not CNC letters, those are hammered. This kind of detail also appears on the Roman helmet, so it's just a continuation of the same character's armor. And you see that here we have what I think is some of the best detail I did so far on anything. In the middle we have this timing belt, which I also got from Garrett, the guy who played the legatos for the pictures. And here on this CNC cut plate, underneath it we have a mesh. Under that we have this really interesting shoemaker's EVA. So this is not your regular EVA, and this goes throughout the whole build, by the way. You have this EVA foam here as well. It's shoemaker's sole EVA, so they make shoe soles out of this. It's also here under the shoulders. And it's like really, really tough stuff. It's like super dense. It's not like your regular EVA. Like, admittedly, I didn't try every grade of EVA that is supposed to be used for cosplay ever. But this is like the toughest stuff. I think it's a lot tougher than what cosplayers usually use. And it actually does give a lot of protection. I've used some of this stuff for the pussy mat, for the gym. For, you know, when I'm doing barbell thrusts, so that the hard barbell doesn't crush my pelvis, basically, to dissipate the energy. And it works so much better than the regular pussy mats. It's amazing. So Shoemaker's EVA, if you can get your hands on some, I recommend it. I don't know which brand it is, or even if it has a brand. I don't know where you can get it in America, so please don't ask. But I know that they use it here in Germany for some type of soles. And this time I also didn't do any wrapping on this, like I would earlier wrap it all in fabric. And this is just because I wanted to try how it will look, and I think it looks pretty cool, even without any wrapping underneath. Like, I'm not bothered by it being the way it is at all. And if we want to talk realism, actually a dissipating layer of a material like this would be very, very useful. Now, assuming the top coat would be some harder metals such as steel or titanium and not aluminum like I actually have here, that would stop the blow from going through. And then this sort of almost rubber-like foam would stop the energy from being concentrated in one place and dissipate it very nicely. And I believe they would also not really waste a lot of time on wrapping it up into fabric, because it's like really sturdy. It's also not like you just rub something against this and there is a hole in it. No, it's just like, it's almost like rubber. So that's why I left it like this, and I intend to maintain this technique for also some future builds, maybe finally for another personal armor, which I finally get to keep. Anyway, so this is how I did the padding on this one. And it's decent. I mean, again, if it wasn't aluminum, then the plates would actually stop a lot of everything. If that everything or something would actually hit the plate, because of course this is not an actual protective armor. On the battlefield you would just receive a spear between the two plates and that would be it, okay? Also here on the sides it's not a lot of protection, if any at all. So here we have those drywall connectors, before you ask. They're used to connect drywall when people are building houses and all that. So those are just sprayed black and mounted here, and they're bent a little bit inwards into this padding. Okay, and it's 3 of them. It's actually pretty flexible between those. The one thing you gotta watch out with those for is that they do not start disintegrating from being bent back and forth a lot of times. Do not bend it again and again and again and again and again, because that would actually damage them over time. And the padding used here, that is actually oven cloth, right? You use those to take hot items out of your oven or off your stove, and those were great as padding. Thanks, Joe, for bringing them by. It is really nice stuff, and because it's, you know, instant padding, it looks exactly like a gambeson, especially if you apply some distressing to it. I also did it right here, so that's what it looks like underneath here. Also worked on the bottom side because it could be seen. I usually don't work on the insides of anything much, but on this armor I did, just because it's such a big white surface here, otherwise it would just ruin the immersion. So those oven cloths are just instant win in the padding department. And they're pretty usable size. I mean, it covers a shoulder or it covers an entire side, and you can use many of them to cover like everything. Or, you know, you can just go the full mile and just take a Russian Telogreyka, which is like a padded warmer, body warmer. That's literally what the name says, Telogreica, body warmer. Alright, moving on. What else we got? This V right here, which doesn't have a lot of detail. Like, that's important. That is very important for the overall composition. If you look at the entire armor, it has like detail here, detail there. There is detail all over the place. In fact, as I told Garrett yesterday, it has so much detail. If you add another tiny detail anywhere, it just bursts out the seams with detail. It's just too much. It stops being pleasing. It just, obviously it doesn't immediately suck then, but it's just, it's a curve, you know? You add detail, you add detail, you add detail. It's awesome until that point, and from that point on, it can just only go downhill because it becomes too much. So it's just on the cusp of that, in my opinion. And in order to offset and balance all the detail that's going on here, all right, so much tiny stuff, like me everywhere. It's cool, it's balanced, it's nice and all that, but it needs to be offset somewhere, counterbalanced with a rest area. So this is like classic detail areas versus rest areas. I have a whole video about that principle, if you didn't see it yet. So this here is a large rest area. Of course, not fully resting. It also has like those two tiny details, which at the same time look more regal without stuff around them. You know, something really high level, a really high level emperor or legatus would wear. And at the same time, it does offer this large resting surface. I originally wanted to put like some text on it, like Gloria, Victoria, whatever, something Roman, but I didn't, because that would just, you know, not do its job as a rest area anymore then. And this looks even better with this, you know, with no text added here in the context of the entire armor. Moving on, since I'm here, this cut right here, when you do your damage work, you know, battle damage afterwards, and this is just done with a disc, with a cutting disc, just a simple cut, and then afterwards sanded it a bit so it doesn't, you know, cut someone by accident. So when you do your battle damage and you have multiple layers, it's a good idea to connect them visually and story-wise with a cut or bruise or anything like this, which goes over both, because it just tells you the story. Both of those things were there as this happened, so they belong together. It just adds to cohesion, okay? Layer cohesion. I have something similar on one of the shoulders here. So in this story, the blade went through the top and it hit the bottom. So it was kind of a cut that goes like this. Oh Jesus, I can stretch my arm that far back, but you know what I mean. Yeah, since we're on the shoulder, Senato Popolo Que Romano, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but it's, you know, the typical Roman motto of the Roman Empire, not just the army. And some small detail here. This is again, I used my metal armor technique on this, and before that I used the same technique as here to CNC it out, to do an engraving and a cut. Again, this kind of stuff can also be done with electrical etching and cutting it by hand. And on this one we have Gloria Exercitus. I have trouble pronouncing the word, I know how it's spelled, but anyway, it means glory to the army, or to the Roman army, of course, in that context, and that was something that the Romans used in the army. So basically just, you know, does this. You'll notice that shoulders are double shoulders. I wanted to have something massive and also something quoting the Lorica segmentata, which is not designed like this at all. In the Lorica segmentata, it goes from here up until, you know, over the shoulder, and there are multiple layers and all. But just as a quote, I think this works. That is also something that people have trouble a lot of times with, like, oh, I'm trying to make historically inspired this and that, like, how much historical precision do I need? Just enough. You know, man, you look at this and you look at the details and the overall shape and you go like, yeah, this could be Roman if they were still around and then the apocalypse happened or whatever. It doesn't need to be very historically precise, but you need to have some, I have the Roman numbers and all that. In the detail, I have the Roman sayings, the things they would inscript on their other stuff, and the overall shape kind of quotes the Lorica segmentata, and also at the same time those body emphasized Roman armors. So there are just enough big and small points to make this work. But was there an armor laid out like this? Hell no. Like, I know of none, and I'm not even talking about the cyberpunk looking cutouts or anything. Even like the segmentation of this, they wouldn't do this. Because again, this doesn't make any sense from protective point of view. It's a very tough build, but it is not protective in combat. Next thing I would like to talk about is those timing belts, which are used as small detail here on the sides, as well as here and here. So I know I say it a lot, but imagine this without without that small detail. Now that detail is kind of ripped, like those are literally ribs, right? So that adds a lot of the same sort, but a finer level of detail as these cuts, about which I will also talk soon again, because their arrangement is important. Anyway, this adds another layer of detail to the armor, literally. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's just a couple of belts. But what it does, it adds additional depth layer to the whole construction. So that is also what I recommend you do when you design your stuff. Do a layer, sub-layer, overlayer. What do I mean by that? So the layer, like the base layer, would be this metal stuff, right? But under that we have the sub-layer of this mesh, we have the sub-layer of the engraving, we have the sub-layer of the padding, then it goes deeper to the sub-layer of those belts. And then we of course have the sub-layer of this vest on which it's based, by the way, a British Army vest this time, but also from the 80s, very comfortable. We also have overlayers, such as this hook on the strap, and on the strap we also have additional detail here, or also on this chest plate we have like this inner chest plate with engraving with this, and then we have like this final element. Okay, those are overlayers and those are sub-layers, and all together they form something very nice and organic looking and complex looking. A lot of times I see the mistake where people have, just a metal plate on top of a vest and that's it. Like, of course it doesn't look deep and doesn't have a lot of story to tell. You didn't add a lot of layers to it. You will see that here are two cuts under this angle. Here is one cut under this angle, right? And that emphasizes the male V, just as the armor. So the chest already does a V, and this continues to flow here. So that is a very aggressive shape, very masculine, very square, very edgy, if you want. Now I sound like an edgelord. Anyway, this is done on purpose, and if you watched my video about costuming fundamentals, it's the anatomy thing. And here I engraved two cutouts that could have been cut out but weren't. This adds, of course, to the industrial look, just as this aiming reticle thing, whatever. Maybe they position something here or drill it out to attach some kind of a hose on like heavier armors or whatever, I don't know. Maybe these are used for something. Obviously those are like, realistically they're useless. The only thing they do is make them more vulnerable, but they look cool, kind of like ventilation shafts, and also anatomically they represent the abs, so that's why they're there. Ranting a lot here, so let's just get on with this. I will take the armor off now and show you how it's taking on and off. This being on the base of a British military vest, it just has some Velcro on the sides here, and it also has this nice middle belt here. So when you put it on, the first thing you do is you connect this belt to the other side, it's also Velcro, and then it snugs itself around your body, which is really nice. And then you position it up and down as you would like, and there we go. And then you just close this. Very comfortable, very easy to get in and out of. But at the same time, if you just have to really pat yourself here on multiple points without destroying and bending these too much, then it holds really nicely. Okay, and now I'm gonna take it off for you. It's a tradition for me to get undressed for my viewers. So here's the back. On this one, you'll see that there is this sort of a electronic device back here. Again, in the story, it could be anything, maybe something that is recording video as the Legatus is going around his business for later combat evaluation. Maybe it's some sort of a communication device, or maybe a combat archive which the Legatus can access. Here we have another glance at this roller-based holding clamp. You can also obviously clamp other things in here, such as this screwdriver. There we go. Well, not this one actually, because it's... Oh, yeah, actually holds. Yeah. But it's designed for a bit thicker ones. And we have this nice rounded metal spine on the lower back kind of thing. It's made of 2 aluminum profiles. And on top of this bashed electronics thing, which I thought would be like a battery or something, which is connected, you know, to the main device. This is from an old cassette player, video cassette player, VCR, or whatever it was called. So yeah, just some electronic stuff going on back here. Are they functional in the story? I don't know. What I do know is that this one would be getting out of there a lot of times, because it's, you know, here. And when you bend it, it does things, does stuff like this. So that's why I decided to add a tip to it. So this one stays inside, it's glued in. This one wouldn't hold for whatever reason. Tried it multiple times. So what do? Well, you add a tip, and this way it still looks, you know, the story is still intact, even if the device is not. Or maybe it's the way it's plugged in and out, because this looks obviously improvised. It's not like they would have ran around. The fact aside that having like electronic stuff strapped right to you on your armor is a bad idea anyway. Those are a hard drive and a CD drive, by the way, mounted on top of each other. And this used to be a multimeter. And here is one of the Wasteland Weekend snail caps, just as a little souvenir. And the chain goes around. So yeah, I could, as usual, I could rant on forever about this, but at this point let me just spare you all the additional detail that I didn't mention yet about this. As I said, I think it's my best build so far. I'm looking forward to beating it with an even better one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Check out my other videos. If you're a regular viewer, support me on Patreon. That's the first link in the video description. Also join the Nuclear Snail community group. That's the second link in the video description. You can post your works there and get some feedback and take part in discussions. Until then, hail the snail!